Welcome to another version of Lightest and Best, where we look at offerings from a variety of manufacturers, their lightest and best offerings. Today we're going to be looking at a custom knife from the A2 series. The A2 series comes from two Andres, Andre Thorburn and Thorburn-van Heerden, who are South African knife makers that did a collaborative effort in making the A2 series. This particular knife is the lightest and best of the A2 series, which is the A5 flipper, and we're going to be taking a look at it. For those of you who are looking for a more straightforward knife review, fast forward now to this time. Okay, for those that wanted to stay and wanted to learn a little bit more about the A2 series, we're going to be reviewing every knife in the A2 series. We'll start with the A1, which is a 3 3/4 inch blade knife. It is a front flipper. And Boker imitated this and got a license to do it, and they made the Boker A2 series. Before you sits the A2 Mini, which is a knife with a blade length of 2.89 inches. They also made a Boker A2, the regular one, which has a larger blade at 3.625 inches, and they're based on the A1 model. It's a front flipper, and I'll show you how it works. Basically, it has some jimping with a front tab. Note that there's not a conventional flipper tab. You reach over with your finger and you open it like that. The A2 series, at least the Boker, you can't slowly open it like this because you run out of jimping and it just doesn't work very well. It's best designed to reach over with your forefinger and flip it out like that. There are front flippers. The South Africans like to call them lip flippers. This is an example of the Burger EXK that has a lip here, but the lip is generated so that you can open it slowly like that. And really, it's hard to reach all the way over here and front flip it because it's just the physics doesn't work well. It's more designed to be a slow front or a quick front flipper like that. So there are different models. The A2 Mini is one where the jimping is placed posteriorly enough that you can just reach over and flip it like that. So that's what the A1 is about. The A3 is a knife that is equally as long, 3 3/4 inch blade. It is distinctive in that it has a double row IKBS bearing system as one of the smoothest free-falling blades you'll come across. There are 5 oblique grooves cut on the bottom back of the handle, and there's also been an A3 Mini released, which is a 3-inch blade, smaller version of the A3. The A4 is a smaller knife. It's 3 1/4 inch length blade. It looks like the A1, except it has a conventional flipper and is smaller. The A1 has a 3 3/4 inch blade. The A4 has a 3 1/4 inch blade plus the conventional flipper rather than the lip flipper. Moving to the A5 is what we're looking at today. It's a 3-inch blade and is the smallest version in the A² series. And it is a version of the A3, except it has single row bearings. So morphologically, it's an A3, except instead of having a 3 3/4 inch blade, it has a 3-inch blade, and it has a single row IKBS rather than the double row IKBS. The A6 is a 3 1/2 inch blade, and it has the leaf-shaped blade. A variety of blades are used on some of the other flippers. There are some that just use one type of blade, and the A6 is one of those. The A7, which you see pictured before you here, comes in a variety of blade shapes, which are about 3 1/2 inches long and has a more straight, non-contoured handle. So there are 6 basic models, A1 through A7. They avoided using the A2 because it might have been confusing, A squared A2. So anyway, there's A1 through A7, but there are 6 basic models, and then there are some sub-models within those basic models. For example, the A3 Mini and the A3 line. It's much like hospitals. If you have a 15-story hospital with 15 floors, there usually are only 14 floors because they skipped the 13th floor because of superstitious people. Well, it's done for different reasons, but basically there's 6 different models in the A2 series. Okay, let's welcome back the rest of those that wanted a more straightforward knife review. On the A5 flipper, we'll talk about the blade length. The blade length is a 3-inch blade, And on the blade, there are only 2 markings, and on the entire knife, there are only 2 markings. It has the maker's mark, H², which is standing again for Andre Thorburn and Andre van Heerden. And then on the clip side of the blade, it has the IKBS bearing symbol. There are no other markings, especially on the handle, so there's the only 2 markings. They really kept the billboarding down, which I appreciate. The handle length of the A5 is 3 3/4 inch long, giving a total knife length of 6 3/4 inches. The weight of the knife is very appropriate at 2.8 ounces. The blade of the knife is made from Bowler N690 steel. It is a hollow ground clip point blade. It has a hand-rubbed satin blade with polished flats. The method of deployment of the blade is by conventional flipper. It flips forward very hard and very fast. And the action of the blade is such that it is not a free-falling blade. You have to shake it down a little bit. That's unlike the A3 Mini and the A3, which are free-falling blades, but still, I really love the action of the blade. The handle of the blade is made from carbon fiber. It has bronze-anodized titanium liners, both on the front and the back, and then it has a G10 back spacer. As well as the G10 back spacer, it has a G10 pillar which supports the spring clip. The pivot is IKBS, Icoma Korth bearing system. It's a single row. The A3, as I've mentioned, had the double row IKBS bearings. It's the only one with the double row IKBS bearings in the A² series. And you'll notice that there is an orange pivot collar both on the show and the clip side of the knife, giving a little pop of color. The pip assembly is with Torx hardware, which I appreciate. A lot of the South African makers use proprietary pivots, but they just use a regular Torx bit to disassemble this one. The lock bar is a captive liner lock and made from the anodized titanium. There's not a lock bar insert, so they must have carbidized the tip because there's absolutely no lock stick whatsoever on this knife. The clip is a spring clip on a G10 pedestal. It's right hand, tip up only. It's got a tie-in coating which stands for titanium aluminum nitride, and is a great functional clip. It's got a nice ramp and fits into your pocket nicely. The ergonomics on the knife are great. It has a little cutout so you can easily disengage the lock bar, but basically it's just a nice knife for your hand and perfect size for my hand. And there's a little bit of jimping on the back side of the spine of the blade. The jimping is perfect rectangular squares, and so it doesn't come up and bite your hand, but when your hand presses into it, you get really good traction on it. So what are my opinions about the A5 flipper by A²? I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite knives in the world. Are there opportunities for improvement? I can't really see any. Honestly, I had heard so much about the action of Andre Thorburn's knives that I was expecting a knife that would free fall, and this isn't one. You have to shake it down, but the action is completely smooth, the lockup is bank vault, and the centering is perfect. But what do I like about the knife? I love the knife because it's a very compact knife. Many of the high-end makers only start at a blade length of 3.5 inches, and they only go larger from there. Andre Thorburn and Andre van Heerden paid homage to the people like myself that like smaller EDC-friendly size knives, and 2 of their 6 models are smaller than 3.5. The A5, which I'm holding, has a 3-inch blade, and then the A4 has a 3.25-inch blade. And that's not even mentioning the A3 Mini. So I appreciate them for making both large knives and smaller EDC-size knives. The action on the knife is absolutely beautiful. It has a strong detent, flips out hard, and is completely smooth. And the knife is beautiful. Everything from the satin blade that's clip point, to the carbon fiber, to the bronze liners that are anodized, to the back spacer, and then the pop of orange color they put on the pivot. It just is a beautiful knife with great action. The A5 is the lightest and best of the A squared line. It has a world-class action. So if you are looking for a 3-ounce, sub 3-ounce size knife with 3-inch blade made by two of South Africa's best knife makers, then the Thorburn-van Heerden A2 A5 flipper might be the knife for you. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next lightest and best video.